In today's podcast, I'm sitting down with Kootenai County Sheriff Bob Norris and Kootenai County Commissioner Bruce Mattare. Here's three things we're going to cover in this episode. Office of Emergency Management updates and Kootenai County's official stance on how they are going to enforce those mandates. The open space bond, which will address that open space out in the prairie, hot topic right now, and the steps that Kootenai County is taking to manage growth right here in the valley. All right, let's go. Hey, welcome to the North Idaho Experience, a podcast for the people of North Idaho and those who are North Idaho curious. These are the stories of those, the people and the businesses that choose to call North Idaho home. And if you're thinking about making North Idaho your home, give our real estate team a call, text, or email, info@nidexperience.com. Special guest today. I'm pretty excited. We've got Sheriff Bob Norris and County Commissioner Bruce Mattare. Did you just get an upgrade at their promotion over there?
Well, it's arguable what it is, but yes, I'm the chair.
So maybe not a good thing?
I get congratulations and condolences at the same time.
Some people call it a sentence.
So maybe not voluntary, voluntold, huh?
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, we've been there. Well, we're going to talk about some good updates that came out recently and what's going on with the county, what's going on with law enforcement in the county. So stick around. We've got lots of great information. Really wanted to dive into first probably some of the Office of Emergency Management stuff that's been going out. There's a lot of misinformation flying around. People are freaking out. Apparently, you're going to come steal all the rights. I don't know. So hopefully get your viewpoint on that and get the word straight out of your mouth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hello, North Idaho and abroad. Great to be with you. I am your MAGA sheriff here in Kootenai County.
Got the hat.
I don't know if you saw that or not, but great to be with you. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah.
False information, totally false. They had every 5 years we redo the Office of Emergency Management emergency plans, and the last one they did in 2018, it actually said shall be arrested. That people who don't evacuate shall be arrested.
So this will be like in the instance of a wildfire and you have mandatory evacuations. If they don't evacuate, shall be arrested.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. So we had 11 meetings out in the public, and the public was able to get input. And then the Director of Office of Emergency Management completed this document, gave it to the board, and it was signed. However, it did say may be arrested, but we are not going to abide by any evacuation order that calls for any resident who wants to safeguard their home or stay in their home during a emergency evacuation or any event, whether it's a fire or anything else. So there's not going to be nobody arrested. We're not going to commandeer your property. Generally, we've all seen these events, and I have been involved in probably over 100, where, and there was a great example was the Wildfire last year. I went up to a farmer and I said, hey, we need your home for a command post. He said, absolutely, you can have all this whole parking lot here, and you can have this area here, and we'll supply water, and we'll get the neighbors, and we'll do food. If somebody objects to that, we don't have time to negotiate, so we're not going to commandeer any property either.
Just going to move on to the next one?
It's just not something that we're going to sit there and negotiate. It's like, okay, hey, I'd rather you not, you know what, we're on to the next. So there's not going to be any commandeering of property, and there's not going to be any arrest of any individual who wants to stay in their home during an emergency evacuation.
Yeah, that's something obviously both of us are very familiar with. You are too. Southern California, when I was a fireman down there, that was a big deal, right? I mean, we had a lot of wildland fires. We had a lot of stuff in the mountains, especially San Bernardino. And it's a big fear that people stay at their house. But their right to be able to protect their own property and do those things, I completely support. It's a little bit unnerving, I think, for first responders, because we have a desire to make sure that people are safe, and we know that when it goes bad, people have a tendency to change their thought process and whether or not they would have stayed, and then you get those calls for help. So right. I understand where that came from, right? Oh, you shall be arrested. I understand with whoever wrote that, I understand what they're talking about.
Right.
However, I really think a lot of it falls to you and the other first responders to taper the response and understanding that people can get hurt in these situations, and it's not your responsibility to put yourself in there when you've given the proper warnings, the proper indications to leave your home. If people want to be stubborn, sometimes, I mean, there's no reason for you to get in the way when that happens.
Right. Now, as an example, if my 92-year-old father is up in a rural area and if they're saying, hey, you're under mandatory evacuation or you're in the go area of an evacuation, do I want them to say, hey, Pops, you're going. Come on, we're going, you know, because he can't, he's not able to fight off any type of wildland fire.
Yeah.
So, yeah, do I want them to compel him to leave? Absolutely, I do.
Yeah, there's definitely some judgment required on the officers at that point, or deputies.
But there's not going to be any, if somebody wants to safeguard their home on a wildland fire, we're not going to come in and say, hey, you have to leave. Absolutely not.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing with a PC hold or anything else. As a medic, there were times where we were able to make people go to the hospital, but they had to be, you know, we had to validate that they weren't of sound mind, they weren't able to take care of themselves. There's certain situations for sure that has to be enforced. But yeah, overall, if people make that decision, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not the one. I think I've learned enough that I'm not going in there after you. You know, when it gets bad, if you've been told ahead of time and you understand that this is a risk you take.
Right. Yeah. It kind of falls onto the nanny laws, as we call them. You know, seatbelt laws, helmet laws. It should be free choice, unless it's a minor and they aren't really capable of making that decision. But you know, an adult of their free will decides to ride a motorcycle without a helmet. That's your choice. You know, you are very well aware, you should be, of the potential outcome of that. But you know, and I'm thinking really back to California, where those laws, you know, we're ticketing seatbelt tickets all the time, and it's an easy ticket. But at the same time, you're like, well, no, it's like, if you don't want to wear it, don't wear it.
You know, and there was some other language that was in that plan that is really up to the incident commander who's in charge of that event that's on the ground. To give you an example, we get a lot of questions out in the community. Well, why can't I go to my house if it's an evacuation area and I need to do this? Because it has to be evaluated. Well, how wide are these roads? Because in some of our rural communities, it's a one-road lane. And there's a lot of stress that gets involved when people are trying to get to their home or leave their home once it's in a go zone. And so what we see people that get stuck in the side of the road. We get people that get their car disabled because there's a lot of stress. Sometimes there's smoke. They can't really see. And then the firefighters don't have an opportunity to get their vehicle up some of these very, very narrow roads. So that's one of the reasons why we want you to keep those roads clear.
Yep. No, I get that. And that's, you know, I think that's a tough thing is people, you know, North Idaho, it's been a shift in life when we moved up here, right? And there's all of a sudden this open eye, you know, this view of, oh my gosh, rights are really important. I never really paid attention to that from where I came from. It wasn't a thing that I paid attention to. And now there's a lot of people up here that they don't want to see rights impinged on at all. And there's a certain level of that where, hey, you know, there's certain rights. I mean, obviously we have First Amendment auditors. We have these people that come in, and we all know where that goes. We've all seen the videos. Right. He won't even let me look on some videos on Instagram.
He's not allowed to look at the comments yet.
I will argue with people. I can't help it. I'm like, please come here. Let's talk. I got to see it. But yeah.
While we're on this subject, though, it is a significant threat here in Kootenai County. It is one of the biggest threat, if not the biggest threat, that we as a community have. Because last year in 2023, in August, the same day that we had the event, or that Spokane had the event at Medical Lake, we had a fire in Cougar Gulch. And we were able to put air assets up there pretty quickly. You know, let's hope that we never see a wind event where we have 100 miles an hour wind. I'm not so sure how to defend that at 100 miles an hour, because those embers are just flying.
Right. I honestly don't think you can. And we just talked about this with the LA fires. You know my background, and I've been trapped and burned over on a fire, you know, in an engine on fires like that. And you can do all the prepping you want. Prepping only protects you against fuel and topography. It doesn't protect you against wind. And luckily, we don't have those phone winds like the Santa Anas, and most of the winds that we get are frontal winds, which, thank God, typically bring weather and moisture, which is good. But yeah, if we did, I mean, the fire in 1918 or 1908 up in Wallace,
Kellogg,
Mattare. Yeah, I mean, if that happens, honestly, I don't know if there's much that we can do.
There's not. I mean, I went through the Paradise Fire, and I was doing evacuations in that one, and it was spotting miles ahead.
Right.
You know, and that was 40-mile-an-hour winds, not 100-mile-an-hour winds. Yeah, it's a factor of just you're doing evacuations and trying to save as many lives as possible because property's absolutely secondary at that point.
So if we could have a takeaway from this episode for our residents in Kootenai County, structure protection and a defensible space around your home if you live in the rural area, it's critically important. And start planning on getting rid of some of that, those trees that are too close to your home. And let's provide that defensible space so firefighters can defend your home.
Yeah.
For sure.
And that's, that is a personal responsibility thing. I just actually, after we did that LA fire video, I started, I have a decent defensible space, but I started limbing up I had a bunch of pine trees on the edge of my property that just dead lower branches.
Oh, yeah.
And they look kind of like shit too, so why not clean them up and you're getting rid of some of that ladder fuel.
And we have engraver beetle action here. I mean, we do have that, and where it heats the trees from the top. So when these embers are flying through the air, they're catching, and all of a sudden you could be half a mile down from where the primary fire is, and then all of a sudden, boom, it explodes right there in front of you.
Yeah.
So dead, diseased, and dying trees, got to get rid of them.
Yep. Good stuff. Okay, so back to that statute that I know I had talked about, like personal property, and people were talking about, hey, are they going to come commandeer my food storage or all of this stuff too? That seems kind of ridiculous to me.
Not going to happen.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So the official stance of Kootenai County is none of that is
none of that's going to happen. There's some great things about Idaho. Great thing about Idaho, there's not too many laws. The bad thing about Idaho, there's not too many laws. Sometimes we have these horse and buggy statutes that are still an Idaho statute. And you need to elect a good sheriff because the vested responsibility of what's enforced and what's not enforced in every county in statute is the elected sheriff here in the state of Idaho. So there's a lot of things that if we had a legislature that was maybe full-time or maybe more time than just, 3 or 4 months out of the year could address some of these things. But there's a lot of horse and buggy statutes that should probably be updated.
Mm-hmm. What other big topics are going down in the sheriff's department? You just recently won the re-election campaign. Congratulations, by the way.
Hey, Seth,
nice
could I say something real quick on
sure.
that? Because I think what's real important for people to understand is that this is legacy language.
Okay.
That this language out there was established. That statute you're referring to, Sheriff, was I think originally from the 70s.
74, yeah.
Yeah, right. So, and language doesn't get amended. I mean, we all know about what happened in Katrina, right, where they were disarming citizens. No one goes around and says, let's look at all of our language and statute to make sure we update that, because it was unconstitutional to disarm people.
Right.
So people need to understand that before they kind of get into a tiz over these things. Now, obviously, like the sheriff said, you want to have good elected officials that, are going to protect your rights. But don't let this kind of, get you bent out of shape necessarily. Let's just figure out a way to address it, amend the language, and so forth. But I also would caution that we want to understand why that language was put there. Because back in the 70s, what was going on? I mean, politics is downstream from culture, right? What was going on? What made them put that language in there to begin with? Because sometimes we want to be careful. Like you were talking about, if you want to ride a motorcycle without a helmet, great. And I agree with you. But when that guy is screwed up and he can't pay his medical bills, who pays for them?
Good point.
And so we just have to be careful. We got to think about that if we look at it too narrowly, But I agree that we do not want to be in a situation where people in this community, anywhere for that matter, where they have to worry about someone telling them they have to leave their house if they want to stay, as long as they know the dangers. And two, God forbid anyone tries to disarm any citizen. That is outrageous, in my opinion. It should never happen under any circumstance.
Which, and obviously would not go well here in North Idaho.
Absolutely.
Well, we're not going to have to think about it because that's never going to happen. We're never going to disarm you. I'm a big fan of the Second Amendment, and long live the Second Amendment. And you have a Second Amendment county, and you got a Second Amendment sheriff. So,
yeah.
How does that play over when you're dealing with other law enforcement agencies that don't have an elected official? So ISP, some of the cities up here. Are you in contact with them, and do you know what their feelings are on these same topics?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We've had discussions, outside the public purview about how these things evolve. There's been situations where, I've had to make some inquiries, and it's been resolved in the interest of the Constitution.
Okay.
So, talking about, can I kind of change gears just a little bit? So, Trump is now president. Okay, he's back in the saddle. I rode a saddle yesterday. It was very weird coming out on a listing that's going live.
Is that a mechanical bull?
Yeah, it'll be
Keep
interesting.
private life to yourself, right?
You'll see it soon. Anyways, so now that Trump is in, this is a question that I have. How does that at all, if any, how does that directly affect you as sheriff? Are there major implications? Are there communications with the federal government now that things have changed? Has there been things that have been disseminated down to sheriffs and communities, or what is it exactly that is happening, if anything, now that Trump has taken?
Yeah, so we've had communications through the Idaho Sheriff Association, basically on jail beds, but we are absolutely looking forward to a law, order, freedom, prosperity, and a national security president once again, and we're going to get that in Donald J. Trump. So I don't know if you could tell, but I'm a big fan of our president. Went to the inauguration. So
Did you?
Yeah, went to the inauguration, and they switched it while we were exchanging planes and said, hey, it's all going to be inside. We weren't one of the 650 that got those tickets, but we were one of the 300,000 that had tickets on the Capitol. But yeah, great energy, high energy. We look forward to working with ICE, Border Patrol, DHS on removing people who were here illegally out of our country.
Right now,
in this county.
In Idaho, I know you've talked on this before, but obviously, people that have immigrated here illegally, it's not. You wouldn't point it out as the hotbed in the U.S., right? Northern Idaho for that, but obviously it does exist up here. How is that going? Have there been any? Have there been any situations yet? Are you guys actively seeking this, or is this something to come?
Oh yeah, no, we really enjoyed the new posture of this administration. We're looking forward to working with our local ICE and Border Patrol officials. They're a little bit busy. They've got a goal of about 1,800 a day in the nation that they want to detain and arrest. So that's their goal, 1,800 a day. And we look forward to working with them here in Kootenai County. We don't have a real big population of illegal immigration. I think it has to do with we don't offer a lot of services. You're not able to get a driver's license. You're able to get some minimal tax services or taxpayer funded, but we're trying to restrict that from the legislature point of view also. So we want to make people who have come here illegally realize that this is not a good state to be in.
Right.
And maybe I should go to Washington or California or Oregon.
Well, that's definitely been the stance. I mean, people know already that this is not the place to be if you want to bring crime, if you want to bring issues like that. I mean, we have very few homeless over here. We have very few resources. Right. I don't think that it's an unloving society at all. I see people all the time doing everything they can to help people out, but like you said, the free resources and taking care of people in that way just doesn't really exist up here. So I'm wondering. As we dive into this, what is the expectation? Do we have an idea of how many undocumented or illegal aliens live in North Idaho? Is that something that's been brought up at all? Are there any stats on that?
Yeah, I don't know if we could accurately estimate that. We also have H-1B workers that some of our employers here in Kootenai County in the region employ. Yeah. So we've got some of those. But guess what? If you're on an H-1B1 visa and you commit a crime, you're subject to be taken out of this country.
Right.
Oh.
So,
okay. Yeah. And you brought the Coeur d'Alene Press, and I can see the article there that Kootenai County Jail sees a surge in immigration holds. Accurate?
Yep. Accurate. Now, mind you, we've gone maybe from 4 to like 12. Okay. So we've tripled. Okay.
Still low numbers, but
exactly.
Technically it is a surge. All right.
Yeah, it's like those robbery stats. When we do robbery stats or something like that, I say, oh yeah, there's been a 200% increase. Okay, well yeah, it went from 2 to 5. What are you talking about? So,
Okay.
You
So-
can make numbers say whatever you want.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
But it
Yeah.
also tells you it's indicative of how little of a problem that we do have here
Yeah.
compared to other parts of the country.
Right.
So, people should be rest assured that we do not have that problem. Now, I think it's fair to say that we've started to see, like at the local Home Depot, folks in the summertime kind of hanging out a little bit and
Yeah.
things like that, which if you're from other parts of the country, down south, even back east, you would see that a lot.
Yep.
So
Very normal there. Here.
It was starting to creep its way into our society up here.
Yeah. So this is a good thing for sure.
It's such a hard thing because there are statistics, and it's obvious that people that come here illegally, there is a lot of associated crime, theft, damage, and everything else. But what you're seeing on the media too, there are a lot of people that immigrate here, even though it is illegal, even though, as the Trump administration stated the other day, they said, how many of these people that you guys seized have committed crimes? You said all of them, because they're all here illegally. Yep. And that's a stance. But, you're seeing the social media and everything else of all the people, the families being separated and everything else. And I absolutely wholeheartedly believe that there are people that have come here illegally that have the best intentions and are good people. And that's hard. But at the same time, there's a line that has to be drawn. And I think it was drawn a long time ago that if you want to come here, we would love to have you. However, there's a route.
Yeah. Yeah.
we have to have a country. We have to have a country, and we have to be a country of laws. So another message here, if you're in Kootenai County illegally, I'm recommending that you self-deport. And if you are a criminal alien here in Kootenai County, I recommend that you turn yourself in, a Kootenai County Deputy Sheriff, and we will get you incarcerated and get you back to your country of origin.
Yeah. And that is true.
Easier that way. Yeah, isn't there something if they self-deport,
There's an opportunity for them to apply.
to come back legally, right? Yeah, but if the alternative, if they get caught and deported, then that opportunity's not there, or it's pushed out a bit further or something. So definitely something to think about.
It's a tough situation.
Crazy. It is a tough situation, man. And I know the liberal side's going to be screaming and crying for the next few years. And I get it. Like you said, there's going to be some good people that suffer because of this. And that's unfortunate, but we have to look at the greater good of our country and the legal citizens of this country before anybody else.
Well, and I think we've had a desire. Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I think we've had a desire as Americans to help other countries and to do those things, but we can't do it if we don't help ourselves, right? If we don't put ourselves in a good position, there's people that constantly say, hey, you should let them be here. You should let these things happen. But nobody there is inviting them in their house, right? They're inviting them in our house, but not theirs.
Right.
And, I bring this up all the time. I'm like, you don't understand. Like, you put all the weight on my back and somebody else's back and all these people, but you don't want to bring them into your house. You don't want to take responsibility for their crimes or for their food or for their medical bills or for anything else. You don't want to take responsibility for that, but you're okay putting it on everybody else.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, and you brought this up, Dave, is the fact that, not everyone is a criminal necessarily who comes into the country, even though they're breaking the law by coming into the country. We're talking about like a violent criminal and so forth. But these people come from cultures that traditionally have more violence, right? So, okay, out of 100 people, maybe only 92 are good, but 8 are not, right? Well, but those 8 can overwhelm our systems.
Oh, 100%.
Absolutely. And then there's all the ancillary problems that come with it. The school systems. Then we have to start paying for interpreters. I mean, all this stuff happened down in California, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had 50 different interpreters for all these different languages. Then you have emergency rooms, right? Because by law, every hospital has to provide medical services to someone who shows up to an emergency room. Who pays for that? Right? So these people don't have health insurance. The hospitals have to pay for it. The federal government, taxpayers, things like that. Eventually, hospitals start closing down their emergency rooms. A number of hospitals have down in California. 3 in Idaho, in the southern part of the state. So, in being a first responder, the golden hour, right? When you get into an accident, you have trauma. If you can get to a hospital within 1 hour, your chances of survival go up dramatically. Well, when that emergency room closes, because so many people have come into this country and overwhelmed our systems, now your life is in jeopardy if you're not close enough to those kind of emergency services.
Yeah, good point. What are some of the other topics that have been flying around right now? You guys probably hear all the hot button things in your positions.
We got the federal government grant money.
Okay.
That was in the paper a couple days ago. Look, watching Trump right now, I mean, I can't think of a better seat to watch a guy take over the reins of government. I mean, this guy has not only been on the receiving end of government all of his life, but the past 4 years, he has been on the receiving end of every horrible thing that government has that they can perpetrate on the American population.
Right.
Okay. So, when he put the pause on the grant money going out, the federal funds, fantastic, in my opinion. But it did lead to a lot of issues, a lot of questions. What about all these ongoing operations that we have? And as much as I wish we didn't take grant money, I wish, first of all, the government didn't take our money from us to give it back under a set of strings.
Just don't take it in the first place.
Yes, exactly, right?
Yeah.
But we do rely on federal grant money, for certain areas. It keeps property tax rates lower as a result of that. But what he was trying to do is stop funding, these organizations that were helping to facilitate illegal immigration, 1,000% for that, as well as the DEI initiatives, the money that we're spending for companies to come in and say, there's too many of you and not enough of you, and we need to change this around, and you need to get a dress, even though you've been wearing pants all your life, and, we're going to promote you, by the way, too. So those kinds of things. So that has been a little bit of a topic, but it has not affected us yet. It normally affects the states first because that money goes through the states before it gets to the local jurisdictions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any updates on the big building downtown? Is that still
On time and within budget.
really?
Yeah.
Because that was wild for.
We're talking about the courthouse?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Bruce and we had talked about that a while back on the podcast. They hadn't set a budget. It was like
Well,
indefinite.
what happened is,
It's a moving target, wasn't
Oh
it?
yeah, it was not good.
it's kind of interesting because, I remember a long time ago someone told me, there's people who are not very smart and they know they're not very smart. And then there's people who are, kind of smart, but they think they're really smart. And then you got people who are really smart and they realize that they don't know that much.
Yeah.
All right. And that's the key, is to figure out, okay, what you know, and what you think you know. And building $30+ million buildings is not something that anyone in this county, at least elected officials and within county government, do on a regular basis.
No.
So you hire an expert to represent you, because the problem most of the time is you need to know the right questions to ask, especially in the beginning. Because, look, it's as old as time. Bid to win, manage for profit. I've had so many people I know who deal with the government, and that's how they make money off the government. They bid to win the contract, and then they manage it to make more money. And they play off the ignorance in the literal definition of the government officials, because they just don't know. They don't build $30 million+ buildings every year. So we hired an expert. They came in, and they looked at everything, and they gave us weekly updates. We're all looking at the same numbers. We started to get a handle on stuff, and the numbers where the expert gave us our, where this should come in at, it's slowly starting to come in a little bit lower. Plus, the bids that were put out for construction came in a lot lower than what the estimates were initially. So that's good news too.
Yeah. Awesome. No, it looks great. It's looking like it's coming along pretty good down there.
Downtown looks so different
Oh,
already.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then what about, I also wanted to ask you about we had talked about this last time, out on the prairie, looking at, was it a levy to buy up land?
The open space bond.
That's it. The open space bond, excuse me. I know it failed, but
yes.
and I've heard a lot of different feedback on this. A lot of people up here, I think in general, are opposed to levies and bonds, just as a matter of fact, regardless of what it is. But then you also hear the side of, hey, we don't want all of North Idaho to be developed. Cool. Well, here's an option, but you got to actually listen to it and see, maybe not be opposed to that one, because this is a reasonable option, I think, on how to preserve some of that prairie.
Yeah. Well, I understand why people are opposed to levies and bonds, but they should be more opposed to their taxes going up.
Yeah.
By a lot more. The reality is that open space does not require classrooms. open space does not require jail beds, and open space does not require wider roads. Development does. And by the way, as you bring more people up to this area, you are changing the community, because the definition of the community, the people who live here, right? If we all just got up and were transported over to Baltimore, and all the people in Baltimore were transported over here, where would you want to live? In Baltimore, because that is now the new community, the people who are there. So as we continue to grow and expand, we are by default changing this community. And so I think having open spaces, I think being a conservative and building things that are nice and that enhance the quality of life for people is important, and we should embrace that. Yeah, some of that stuff, I guess you could argue the left does, but that doesn't mean it's a bad idea. And in the long run, you're going to save money paying on a bond than you are when your taxes go up, because we need more jail beds, we need more schools, we need wider roads. And all of these things are going to be borne, these expenses are going to be borne by the existing residents in this community, because growth does not pay for itself. So maintaining open spaces actually will save you more money in the long run.
So, I was against this when I first heard about it. Then I educated myself to it. And then after that period of education, I thought, oh, well, you know what? This is actually not a bad idea.
Right.
Because this will save us money in those jail beds, and this will save us money in school levy. I don't think that there's a school district around here that hasn't had a school levy at some point in time.
Yeah.
So,
And we are. I mean, the schools, my son went to Lake City, and he was like, man, it's too crowded. I mean, we're already a high school behind, and a middle school behind. I mean, and I don't know when the plans are for anything like that,
Right.
but that's something that, I mean, we pretty much need it.
There are no plans.
Oh, okay.
I just got back from Boise. We had a Idaho
Fantastic.
Association of Counties winter conference. I talked with 3 different county elected officials. They're all trying to figure out how to expand their jail because of the growth. They have $0. They're looking for the state. The state's not going to do it. So, ultimately, one of them is actually facing, they fail their inspection every year, their jail inspection. Because of overpopulation, beyond the legal limit, things like that. The money, one county was looking at $180 million. They have to build a brand new jail.
Whoa.
Yeah. And it's a much smaller county than Kootenai County. And we're the 3rd largest county in the state.
Wow.
There are no plans, and that is why people have to get engaged. There are some mechanisms that can help. When I talked to them, I explained to them, I said, I'm not 100% sure if you can do this with the jails, but you either have to get a bond, which requires a 2/3 vote. Those people don't want levies. They don't want to have bonds, right? Because they see that as their taxes going up. But the downside to that is you enter into a consent decree with the federal government that then tells you what you have to do. You have to hire compliance people, and eventually you may actually have to get that bond in order to build that jail, and it'll be a lot more expensive in the long run. So what I talked with them about was there are some financing programs out there where you can actually have a company build the jail for you or some other municipal building, and you lease it back. And after 30 or 40 years, you pay them $1, you own it, right? And you can bypass the 2/3 requirement on the vote in order to pass the bond. And the other thing is that you can use impact fee to pay for that. So that's another thing. Like the county here, we are desperately trying to get our impact fee implemented. And it requires all the cities to capture that fee for you whenever someone applies for a building permit. And so the counties are reliant on the cities to actually get this fee. And if they don't, you really can't put the impact fee in place, right? So, that is the problem. There are no plans. And when it happens, it's going to be through crisis, which will mean we have to have crisis managers as elected officials to deal with it. No one's going to like it. And it always costs more when you don't plan properly.
Yeah. Well, that's been one of those things. I think, with the explosion in growth up here, schools are a huge issue. Like, they're a huge issue.
Yep.
And to be able to put in new schools takes a lot of planning. It takes, I know the district owns certain lands and everything else, but it takes a lot to put in a high school. And that's a big deal. But I look at that right there and I'm like, we can't just have 3 high schools up here. We need more. And this place is going to get busier.
That's right. And, here's the funny thing. A lot of people don't know this. When our community development department gets a proposal for a subdivision, we send out notices to a bunch of different agencies, including the school districts. And we ask them, if we approve this, how will it affect you, right? A lot of times we don't even get a response, right? So they're not even responding to the growth questions that we have when it comes to us saying yes to more homes in this community and how that will affect the schools. Now, fortunately, the sheriff has been replying and telling us, look, this will affect our service levels. If you say yes to more growth, then it will affect our ability to provide good service to the existing residents. That is something that we need to have with all of the different jurisdictions. So I've been advocating that we start developing service levels with the different jurisdictions and then asking them, how will growth affect your service level? Where should it be? Where are you now? And if you're not where you want to be now, we should be rethinking saying yes to more growth today.
Mm. Are there plans in the county on how to other ways to deal with growth and like the because we get this question a lot, the housing crisis? I mean, there's really no low income options for people that are in the service industry. Is that being talked about much up there?
Well, I guess there is talk. I guess they call it workforce housing.
Yeah.
So the only types of housing that I'm aware of is market rate housing and subsidized housing. I don't believe this community wants to start subsidizing housing because it becomes a racket in the long run. I think we all came from places that had
Like Section 8, that kind of stuff? Yeah.
Now, we do have a lot of subsidized housing. I've heard this, I've not verified this, where we have these apartments that are growing. People are fertilizing these fields out, and then all of a sudden we have all these garden-style apartments everywhere. And I think they're charging about $1,800 a month for like a 2-bedroom. And from my understanding, and again, I haven't verified this, I've heard that the state is paying upwards of $1,200 a month for their housing.
Wow.
So we already have a lot of subsidized housing here.
Okay. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we all know the risk. People will abuse that, right?
Well,
that's what happens everywhere.
Well, someone made the comment earlier about, the homeless. We care about people, but we don't make it, a great place, to be homeless necessarily. We don't put a lot of resources into that. Well, like the old saying with capital goes where it's going to be treated best. So do people as well. So if you have really good benefits and programs for people who are low income, guess what? They're going to move into your community.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, if you want more of that, then you should want more benefits and more programs for people like that.
Future episode alert, if you can get a plain speak legislature to come in here, because a lot of these statutes that are at the state level really favor the developer and builder. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think we need to start some change.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you read the impact fee statute, it was written by developers, for developers.
Yeah.
I mean, I give them a lot of credit. It is a wonderful piece of window dressing, for the community, but it doesn't really do a lot of good for us. And the main reason is that you can't impose an impact fee on something that lasts less than 10 years. So it should be long-term capital, right? But here's the kicker. If you collect the money, you have to spend it within 8 years. So you have to spend it on an 8-year cycle, within an 8-year cycle, but it can only be for long-term capital that lasts 10 years or more, like buildings and things like that. You can't use it for cars. Can't use it for, automobiles, things like that.
Oh, boy.
Seth, you had said something about an election, but did I recently have an election? Because
Did you block it out?
I think it was like, I don't know, there's like 50 percentage points there was difference.
A landslide.
Yeah, I didn't know I had any opponents, to be honest
I
with
know
you.
you got sworn in, but
Yeah.
I just thought that was a formality.
I think so, yeah. But
That was,
maybe in 2028 we'll get them by 70 percentage points.
It was interesting to watch. Let's just say that. Yeah.
Well, didn't your closest competitor get less votes than Kamala Harris?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your closest competitor got less votes than
Kamala Harris. Yeah, Harris got
Wow.
more votes here in Kootenai County
Wow.
than he did. Yeah.
You know, speaking on that, I think anyone who's going out to run a campaign on things, and if you spend a majority of your time talking smack about your opponent and not telling people about yourself, I think you're setting yourself up for failure.
Well, you have nothing to run on.
Right. Yeah. So that would have been my advice in that situation of like, hey, you know what? Tell us about yourself more. I don't want to see you just throwing mud at things. It's
The
not a good
whole
policy.
Harris campaign should have been about what the last 4 years and the improvements that they've
Right.
done the last 4 years. But it was an anti-Trump campaign.
Right.
Well,
And
that's
this
what
was the same thing.
But there was nothing to say that.
Well, exactly.
A lot of
But that's what it
times-
should have been
Yes,
about,
yes.
right?
You know, it's crazy when you look at like old. I mean, this has happened way back. I mean, I think they were showing like John Adams versus like Monroe or something way back, and like the stuff that came out in print, and you're like, holy smokes! And they were doing smear campaigns. I mean, it's just nutty, right?
Right.
But I mean, realistically, in Kootenai County, I think people just want to know like what are you going to do? I don't care about the other guy. Like, let him say what he wants to do. And I think that's super important for any political position, because we've gone away from that. It has. It's turned into smear campaigns.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I just don't want to learn the bad things about Bruce. I want to know what you're going to do. Like, what is it that you're going to change or continue to implement? How has it had effect? That's what I care about. I don't care about the fact that you're retired from LA County. I don't care if you're in a wheelchair, to be honest, in your position. Like, that's not my concern. So
And I
it's
think
frustrating.
that the voting public saw it the same way.
Yeah. So what has there been? I know that your first 4 years, obviously, you know, whenever you come into a position, there's always changes that you make, right? Because you have an idea, you have an agenda, you have things that you think can be better. So you've done a lot of that in 4 years. What changes? What's on your mind for these 4 years as sheriff up here? Are there anything?
Oh, yeah. So short term, we're going to set a series of town hall meetings, and we're going to educate the public. And we want people to take this information to their dinner table, to their neighborhood conversations, and the biggest concerns and threats here in Kootenai County. And we already talked about one, certainly fires. That is those 185 homes that were lost in Medical Lake. That event's coming here. Unfortunately, we are likely to have something like that. So we want to make sure that people are getting rid of debris from their property and what have you. We want to educate on that. Number two, and not in any particular order, scams here in Kootenai County are off the chart. I mean, we are having people contact us daily that they got took for $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $180,000.
Are these out of country actors doing this stuff?
Generally, it's through Bitcoin. You know, they want to pay through Bitcoin. And once you put that money in that Bitcoin machine, it's getting picked up in Russia, Romania,
So
China.
there's really nothing you can do other than educate the people, right?
Absolutely.
You're not going to
absolutely.
arrest somebody in Russia.
Right.
I just had one of these happen to me, and it came through as Kootenai County Sheriff.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
The number.
Oh, yeah.
And-
They spoofed
Right,
it.
and
yeah.
I saw it, and I'm like, what in the heck? And the guy answers, hey, this is Deputy whoever, Deputy Smith. I mean, it was something, whatever, and I'm listening. I'm like, I'm not Deputy Smith. Not that I know everybody over there, but I'm like, okay. So he's telling me, yeah, you missed your jury duty, and there's going to be a warrant out for your arrest. And he starts telling me these things, and he says,
Actually, I think that was the real one.
oh, that was? Yeah. I'm like, oh, all
that might
right.
have
We're
been
saving
the
that
real
for
one.
after the
Don't
show.
run me. No,
There's a
but
couple deputies outside waiting for you.
oh, hopefully. Okay, so, but he told me, you know, it was funny. I'm listening, and I'm like, okay, I'm just paying attention. Honestly, at first, I'm just, okay, the sheriff's department, what's up? He said, oh, you missed jury duty. You know, I'm like, yeah, I didn't get anything. And he's like, yeah. And he gives my address. I'm like, okay, that's easy. All right. And he goes, and he's saying my address, and he goes, Cora Delane. And I'm like, oh. I go, hold on, bro. You're a Kootenai County deputy, and you don't know how to say Cora Delane? And he's like, yeah, click. I'm like, you son of a, you gotta be kidding me.
So
at least we got one of those names.
we need to bring that to a daily conversation. I got a 31-year-old female who you would thought would be on social media, comes in and says, hey, I got took for $15,000. So we do social media PSAs. We have these limited town halls, which we're going to increase. And also, probably the biggest threat if you have a teenager is this cell phone right here.
Yep.
Now, is human trafficking occurring in Kootenai County? No. are there people that live in different parts of this country or this world that are soliciting our teenagers to get naked pictures, sextortion events? That's happening daily, and it's probably happened since we've started this show. That is absolutely. And does that situation put that teenager at risk for being a victim of a crime and human trafficking in the future? You're damn straight it
Absolutely.
does. Yeah. So we need to bring that to a community conversation also. So that's what we're going to be focusing on. Scams, the hazards of social media.
Those are both big ones, because if an elderly person got that call that you got, they wouldn't have picked up on that, man, and they'll buy into it.
$180,000. I had an elderly couple. $180,000.
Well, and let me ask you, so that people know, if you've missed jury duty, if you have violated something, how does the sheriff's department handle it?
We're not going to contact you on the phone.
Okay.
We're not going to contact you. So these are scams. And if you believe that somebody is scamming you, then give your local police or sheriff's office a call, and we will take immediate action on it. So if you think that you're in a conversation with somebody for them to fraudulently obtain your money, we're not going to ask for money over the phone. No law enforcement agency is going to ask for money over the phone.
Yep. And if anyone asks you to go to Western, nobody uses Western Union anymore in the entire world except criminals.
Do we even have a Western Union?
I think they still exist. So if they ask you to go to Western Union or Bitcoin, some ATM, that's shady. That should definitely be a clue. So yes, there you go. Good. Sheriff's office is never going to ask that.
And what about a non-emergency number and saying, let me get your name, what is your extension, and I'm going to call the main number and try to reach you.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, because
You're not gonna bug anybody doing that. That's good.
every deputy should have an extension if they're going to be making phone calls. And that is a quick and easy way to verify if it's a legitimate person.
Yep. I hate thieves deeply, and that's like the worst when they're preying on, especially that.
Oh, yeah.
Pisses
Vulnerable
me off.
population, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and people get upset about it. They get emotional about it. But these people are usually overseas. They're somewhere else, and they don't have any human factor associated with it, right? They're just robots just calling and saying, and if this happens, and they do this. And when they're done with you, they don't know you. They don't know what you look like. They don't know who you are. They just hang up, and they're on to the next person.
They don't care.
Yeah, and it's like a call center in the background, by the way. I remember hearing that, too, in the background. This is Deputy. Oh, I'm like, what is going on?
Oh, yeah.
And you can't physically punch them in the face because you get
that would change a lot.
The worst. That would change a lot, I'm telling you. What a bummer. Okay, so that's good stuff. Those are the hot topics coming right now. And we had talked before the podcast, the library stuff with the books.
Yeah, it's in Idaho statute now.
Okay,
if it has sexually explicit material in violation of Idaho law, it should be in an area 18 and over, and that's
so
what
it's
the
still
Idaho statute
accessible
says.
to people,
right?
Just
nothing's getting banned,
right?
Yeah, which makes sense. The first time you came on and you brought some samples, we didn't even read them on the air, and we're not shy about swearing and things on the air, but it was like extremely explicit.
Right. It was not.
It was pornographic.
It was not that we made love on a white sandy beach till the sun. No. This was.
I've still yet to do that. Honestly.
Yeah.
It's very abrasive. I wouldn't recommend it. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So descriptive.
Okay.
You asked.
Moving on.
All right.
So the explicit material.
It's not what it's cracked up to be, is it?
No. Yeah, there's no need for
sand gets everywhere, doesn't it?
Exactly. See, now we're gonna be on this story.
Everyone's turning red.
Oh, I'm good with it. Honestly, it's way too rocky up here. To be honest, it is not gentle. No, and that's important too. Protecting kids and giving them the ability. I could really care less what people do with their own time, but I think it's really important to make sure that at least, I wouldn't even use the word censored, but that there is a parental opportunity to raise your children, right? Like, if there's parents out there, they say, hey, this is okay in my home. I don't agree with it, but I'm also not here to step in and certain things.
Absolutely.
There's certain ways that you want to educate your kids.
They can check it out. They can go buy it and give it to your 10-year-old. That's not how I raised my kids. So.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's even a line there when you draw, right? Like, what is this a grooming process? Like, what exactly is the use of this? Why would you do that?
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Why would you write a book like that and then market it to teens or younger. That does not make sense.
Absolutely.
In any world.
Right.
No.
And I think all that comes down to just, what is the motive behind it, right? My kids have tasted alcohol before. It's not because I want to teach them to drink, but I don't want them to have the curiosity. My daughter's like, what does that taste like? Well, here, taste it. I don't sit there and feed my daughter alcohol, but I also don't want her to try to taste it when I'm not there. And you know what I mean? So there's definitely a difference in how things are taken care of. And I think that parental rights and being able to have that opportunity to control those things is important. Just having those things out to the kids.
I mean, my parents, when I was teething, they gave me Jack Daniels with a nipple on it. I mean, that's just what you did, right?
Yep. Yeah, totally normal.
Yeah, Jack Daniels. Yeah, that's fine, right?
I still drink it that way.
Here, just rub it that way.
I'm pretty sure they rub it on your gums. You have the full thing. Okay, that's a different way.
Little bottle of Jack D. Yeah, that'll do it. Put you to sleep every time.
That's awesome.
I think I hit all the topics I want. Do you guys have anything pressing that you wanted to get out there? Obviously, we can always do this again. It's nice to get periodic updates from both sides, from the county side and the sheriff's department. We are one of your biggest recruiters, by the way.
Thank you very much.
We had another guy up this week for testing. He's good. He's a stud.
Okay, good.
We're excited.
Yeah.
Won't mention his name.
Good people coming your way.
Yeah.
And here's a real quick hot topic.
Sure.
So any issues in Kootenai County with drones, weird fog, anything else like this? I mean, chemtrails, anything else that we're having to deal with over here?
Yeah, not that I've been seen or heard or notified of.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, we're good up here for now, okay?
Okay.
It's wintertime, too, so most of those people are staying indoors.
Perfect. Yeah, this is the time, I hate to say this, but this is the time when I was in law enforcement, I'm like, okay, domestics start happening in about February. People have been pent up. They've been stuck in there. And, my wife eventually gets sick of me after 3 months of darkness. But
She's sick.
Wow.
this has been
3 months?
Yeah, 3 months.
Way quicker than that.
This is,
Wow, yeah, 3 weeks. I thought it'd be 3 weeks. I mean, we've been here 30 minutes. I'm getting ready
This
to...
has been a great winter. This has been a great winter. I haven't fell at all this winter yet. So
Yeah.
it's good.
That's good.
We have some people you can talk to if that's a real problem, okay?
Yeah, my wife's going to kill me every time she sees.
I'm still working on Dave with the deputizing thing, by the way. We'll get him there.
Yeah.
Listen, liability for you.
Yeah,
Okay?
I think we can do both of you right now.
Oh, God. Every time, Seth,
I think we can
swear.
make you a special deputy right now.
You do not. Oh,
Yeah, raise your right hand. Let's get this done.
Stop it.
Give
Get
me
off me. Don't touch me.
Give me the arm.
Let's get this done right now.
All right.
Oh, Dave's wife said no. Mine did too, actually. But anyway, thank you guys. Very informative. Always appreciate having you both on here. Sheriff Bob Norris and Bruce Mattare, County Commissioner. So thank you again.
Thanks for having us.
Catch you next time.
Thanks, guys.